Hello friends and welcome. Today we shall discuss motivation, viewpoints of different psychologists with regard to motivation, and finally we shall highlight various theories of motivation. To begin with, let me first of all give you an overview of motivation. Students, psychologists ever emphasize on the fact that two elements are required to perform a job. First is the ability to perform the job. Second is the will to do the task from within. Until we do not have internal will to do a job, we will not do it in spite of having the ability to do it. Superior accomplishment in any field of human endeavor is not only because of favorable environmental conditions, economic well-being, or extraordinary intellect. All we need is an abundant curiosity coupled with enormous zeal and determination. History of mankind is replete with the emergence of such individuals who could achieve so much despite so many obstacles. Behavior is always motivated. Behind every instance of behavior, one could infer a need or urge. These needs could be physiological, psychological, as well as social. All needs arouse an activity in the organism to seek gratification or fulfillment. An unfulfilled need causes discomfort or disequilibrium. Unlike the subhuman species, human beings have multiplicity of needs. Motivation may be defined as the force which compels an individual to act or to behave in a particular direction. The direction that such a motivated behavior takes is the goal. Motivation includes all those activities which are responsible for arousing, sustaining, and regulating our activities towards the goal. The forces that lie beneath motivation can be biological, social, emotional, or cognitive in nature. A classic distinction in motivation is between intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is the natural tendency to seek out and conquer challenges as we pursue personal interests and exercise capabilities. When we are intrinsically motivated, we do not need incentives or punishments because the activity itself is rewarding. Intrinsic motivation comes from within the student or from factors inherent in the task being performed. For example, students who love to read are intrinsically motivated to read. There is something about reading that they enjoy and that makes them want to do it even if there is no reward for it. If a student studies a subject outside school simply because he loves the activity and no one makes him do it, it is intrinsic motivation. In contrast, when we do something in order to earn a grade, avoid punishment, please the teacher, or for some other reason that has very little to do with the task itself, we experience extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation comes from sources external to the student and the task. It can come through praise, recognition, or a system of rewards. As teachers, we hope to promote intrinsic motivation in our students as it encourages lifelong learning. Some strategies for promoting intrinsic motivation include arousing interest in the subject matter, maintain curiosity, using a variety of interesting presentation modes, or helping students set their own goals. A number of other strategies such as student choice, demonstrating the relevance or usefulness of content, and collaboration can also help encourage intrinsic motivation. We will sometimes need to use extrinsic motivation as well. Be sure to use them only when the task is uninteresting to students. And make sure that The motivators are contingent on performance and recognize competence. Extrinsic motivators can also help to develop intrinsic motivation. We are not really interested in the activity for its own sake. We care only about what it will gain us. A student may be working for a grade. He might be having little interest in the subject itself. The essential difference between the two types of motivation is the student's reason for acting. That is, whether the locus of causality for the action is internal or external. That means inside or outside the person. In school, both intrinsic and extrinsic motivations are useful. Teacher can create intrinsic motivation by connecting to students' interests and supporting growing competence. But as we know, this won't work all the time. Some students don't find long division inherently interesting. There are situations where incentives and external supports are necessary. Teachers must encourage and nurture intrinsic motivation while making sure that extrinsic motivation supports learning. Let us go through some psychological perspectives or theories. But remember, each individual theory tends to be rather limited in scope. However, by looking at the key ideas behind each theory, we can gain a better understanding of motivation as a whole. First of all, let us discuss drive theories. These theories are described as push theories of motivation because behavior is pushed towards goals by driving states within the person or animal. Driving theories uphold that when an internal state is aroused, the individual is pushed to engage in behavior which will lead to a goal that reduces the intensity of the driving state. The goal which reduces the driving state is pleasurable and satisfying. The motivation is said to consist of number 1, a driving state, number 2, the goal-directed behavior initiated by the driving state, number 3, the attainment of an appropriate goal, and number 4, the reduction of the driving state and subjective satisfaction and relief when the goal is reached. The sequence of events that I just described is called the motivational cycle. The famous psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud, for example, based his ideas about personality on innate or inborn sexual and aggressive urges or drives. Freud conceived of sex as a primary driving force in behavior. He called this psychic energy the libido, later adding another primary drive of aggression. To Freud, the impulses of the id, that is the primitive part of the unconscious, composed of instinctive cravings characterized by unrestrained pleasure seeking. Hence, the sexual drive leads to varied activity both through its satisfaction and through the anxiety that arises from attempts to cope with it. Let us now talk about incentive theories. In contrast with the push or drive theories, incentive theories are pull theories of motivation because there is something about the goal itself that motivates behavior. The goal objects which motivate behavior are known as incentives. An important part of many incentive theories is that individuals expect pleasure from the attainment of what are called positive incentives and from the avoidance of what are known as negative incentives. This is the behavioral perspective. The behavioral perspective emphasizes external rewards and punishments as keys in determining a student's motivation. Incentives are positive or negative stimuli or events that can motivate a student's behavior. Advocates of the use of incentives emphasize that they add interest or excitement to the class and direct attention toward appropriate behavior and away from inappropriate behavior. Incentives that classroom teachers use include numerical scores and letter grades, which provide feedback about the quality of the students' work. Other incentives include giving students recognition, for example, by displaying their work, giving them a certificate of achievement, and verbally mentioning their accomplishments. Another type of incentive focuses on allowing students to do something special, such as playing computer games or going on a field trip as a reward for good work. The incentive theory is a theory that is supported by many behavioral psychologists, the most distinguished one being B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner, the radical behaviorist, upholds that a person will more likely do an action that is positively received, while he will more likely avoid an action that is negatively received. The incentive theory is said to be different from other theory of motivation in such a way that it views the stimulus as something that attracts the person towards it rather than something that prompts a person to reduce it or totally eradicate it. An incentive is either a promise or an act that is provided for the sake of greater action. In business, an incentive may be an additional benefit or remuneration or job promotion given to an employee either to recognize his achievements or to encourage him to perform better. Additional remuneration or benefits motivate an employee to accomplish greater things. On the other hand, non-monetary incentives such as job promotion, job security, and job satisfaction are also employee motivators according to this theory. Unlike the drive reduction theory, the incentive theory states that a stimulus attracts a person towards it. Now, let us discuss need hierarchy theory of Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow, an American psychologist, in his need hierarchy theory of motivation, talks about two kinds of needs: the deficiency-related needs and growth-related needs. In the first, humans seek to restore the homeostatic state which is disturbed due to lack or deficiency of certain kinds of body needs essential for survival. The second motive is concerned with seeking to go beyond, that is, to grow more and more. He has arranged all human needs in order of dominance as represented in the figure. These needs are arranged in hierarchical order from primitive to higher order human needs. At the bottom most layer of the hierarchy are the primary physiological needs such as hunger, thirst, sex, etc. When these needs are satisfied, then the individuals move to the next layer of hierarchy, the need for security. This includes physiological as well as psychological, both kinds of security ensuring survival, such as protection from war and crime. Next is the social need of affiliation, that is, need to love and to be loved. It is to seek love, security, affection, and attention from others. After meeting these successfully, we move on to next higher order need, self-esteem, that is, to feel esteemed by ourselves and by others. It is feeling good about oneself. When all these needs are satisfied, people move on to self-actualization, the highest and most elusive of Maslow's needs. It is the motivation to develop one's full potential as a human being. This need drives the individual to fully utilize his potentials. Such persons are self-aware, socially responsive, spontaneous, creative, open to novelty and challenge. They have sense of humor and are capable of deep interpersonal relationship. In Maslow's view, self-actualization is possible only after the lower needs have been met. Maslow cautions the most people stop maturing after they have developed a high level of esteem and therefore never become self-actualized. The growth need in self-actualized people are expressed through meta-needs like wholeness, perfection, completion, justice, richness, simplicity, aliveness, beauty, uniqueness, truth, meaningfulness, etc. They are the persons who have the potentials of positive life enhancing forces for personal growth. It is important to note here that such people are very few, as most people remain over with lower level needs only. In the hierarchy of needs, the needs at the lower level dominate as long as they are not satisfied. For this reason, Maslow calls the needs as prepotent, that is, every need is strong enough and unless one need is satisfied, another need is away from the focus. Thus, the individual moves on to next higher need only when the lower level needs are satisfied. For example, in a starving man, the physiological need, hunger, is the most dominant need. He is preoccupied with obtaining food. Therefore, he does not aspire for social approval, belonging or love needs. He may not even think of satisfying another day's meal because for him only today's meal is important. But once the most dominant need, that is for today's meal, is satisfied, he may begin to think for the future, whether his hunger need will always be met or not. Thus, he moves on to next in the hierarchy, the safety or security need appears and presses for satisfaction. Similarly, the other higher order of needs begin to appear when the lower order need is satisfied. Thus, in Maslow's view, students must satisfy their need for food before they can achieve. His view also provides an explanation of why children who come from poor or abusive homes are less likely to achieve in school than children whose basic needs are met. The humanistic perspective stresses students' capacity for personal growth, freedom to choose their destiny, and positive qualities such as being sensitive to others. It is important here to note that these hierarchies are not rigid. Individuals differ in strength of these complex motives. Some are found high in self-esteem and low in need for belongingness and love need, and vice versa. Thus, hierarchical order does not strictly apply to each person, but it does represent the range of needs which have significance in many of our life situations. There are societies where people have to struggle for food, shelter, and safety. As such, these societies are still poor in scientific and architectural endeavor. Now, let us discuss existence, relatedness, growth motivation theory, abbreviated as ERG motivation theory. In an attempt to line up Maslow's theory of needs with empirical studies, American psychologist Adler's ERG theory elicits three core requirements: existence, relatedness, and growth. This categorization reduction is the result of earlier research on Maslow's hierarchy of needs that indicates some overlap within the middle levels. According to Adler, the needs aren't in any order, and any desire to fulfill a need can be activated at any point of time. This results in the lower level needs not requiring to be satisfied in order to satisfy a higher level need. Adler's ERG theory can actually be utilized as a frustration regression principle, where an already satisfied lower level need can be reactivated when confronted with the impossibility of satisfying a higher level one. ERG theory by Adler condenses Maslow's 5 human needs into 3 categories: existence, relatedness, and growth. Existence relates to a person's physical needs such as food, clothing, and shelter. Relatedness relates to a person's interpersonal needs within his personal as well as professional setting. Then it is growth. Growth relates to a person's needs of personal development. Even though the priority of these needs differ from person to person, Adler's ERG theory prioritizes in terms of the categories concreteness. Existence needs are the most concrete and easiest to verify. Relatedness needs are less concrete than existence needs, which depend on a relationship between 2 or more people. Finally, growth needs are the least concrete in that their specific objectives depend on the uniqueness of each person. Adler's ERG motivation theory differs from Maslow's theory in 3 ways. Number 1, a lower level need does not have to be gratified. That is, a person may satisfy a need at hand whether or not a previous need has been satisfied. Number 2, if a relatively more significant need is not gratified, the desire to gratify a lesser need will be increased. That is, the frustration in meeting higher order needs might lead a person to regress to a more concrete need category. And lastly, Adler's ERG theory allows the order of the needs to differ from different people. For example, it accounts for the starving artist who may place growth needs above existence ones. Now, let us try to understand cognitive approach to motivation. In many ways, cognitive theories of motivation developed as a reaction to the behavioral views. Cognitive theories believe that behavior is determined by our thinking, not simply by whether we have been rewarded or punished for the behavior in the past. Behavior is initiated and regulated by plans, goals, schemas, expectations, and attributions. One of the central assumptions in cognitive approach is that people do not respond to external events or physical conditions such as hunger, but rather to their interpretations of these events. In cognitive theories, people are seen as active and curious, searching for information to solve personally relevant problems. Thus, cognitive theories emphasize intrinsic motivation. Bernard Wiener's attribution theory is a good example. This cognitive explanation of motivation begins with the assumption that we try to make sense of our own behavior and the behavior of others by searching for explanations and causes. Students attribute their successes and failures to ability, effort, mood, knowledge, luck, help, interest, clarity of instructions, the interference of others, unfair policies, and so on. To understand the success and failure of others, we also make attributions that the others are smart or lucky or hardworking, etc. Attribution theories of motivation describe how the individual's explanations, justifications, and excuses about self or others influence motivation. Bernard Wiener is one of the main educational psychologists responsible for relating attribution theory to school learning. Dear students, let us shift our focus towards expectancy theory of motivation. Let me ask you a question here. Tell me, why does a person read a book? Definitely not to reduce a biological need, but it leads a person to reach important goals, gaining useful and important knowledge, earning a high grade in the exams, or graduating from the college. Your behavior is determined by your thoughts about future outcomes and about how your current actions can help you get wherever it is that you want to go in life. This basic point forms the basis for theory of motivation, that is expectancy theory. This theory suggests that motivation is not primarily a matter of being pushed from within by various urges or drives. Rather, it is more a question of being pulled from without by expectations of attaining desired outcomes. Such outcomes, known as incentives, can be almost anything we have learned to value: money, status, the approval of others, to name just a few. In other words, while drive theory focuses mainly on the factors that push us towards certain actions, expectancy theory focuses more on the outcomes we wish to obtain. Why do people engage in complex, effortful, or even painful behaviors such as working many hours on their jobs, studying long into the night, or performing exercises that are at least initially painful? Expectancy theory answers, because they believe that doing so will yield the outcomes they wish to attain. Expectancy theory has been applied to many aspects of human motivation, but perhaps it has found its most important application as an explanation of work motivation, the tendency to expend energy on one's job. Research findings in the field of industrial organizational psychology indicate that people will work hard at their jobs only when they believe that doing so will improve their performance, that good performance will be recognized and rewarded, and that the rewards provided will be ones they want. Students, it was all in today's lecture. I hope that you might have understood the basics of motivation. Thank you.